Some secrets are buried in plain sight. They hide behind the polished brass of Manhattan townhouses. They whisper in the quiet hum of private jets soaring to unseen islands. Jeffrey Epstein was one such secret. He was a phantom who walked among the world's most powerful people. A man with no clear source of wealth, yet he possessed an almost limitless fortune. He was a ghost in the machine of global finance and politics. His name was a password whispered among the elite, a key to a world of unimaginable luxury and influence. But behind the veneer of sophistication, a darkness festered, a rot that would eventually consume everything it touched, leaving a trail of shattered lives in its wake. His world was an enigma, wrapped in a mystery. Epstein presented himself as a brilliant financier, a mathematical genius who had outsmarted Wall Street. He owned a sprawling estate in New Mexico, a private island in the US Virgin Islands, one of the largest private residences in New York City. He flew the world's most famous people on his private jet, dubbed the Lolita Express. He was a friend to presidents, a confidant to princes, a patron to scientists. Yet no one could truly pinpoint where his billions came from. The official story always felt thin, like a hastily constructed facade, designed to conceal something far more sinister. The truth was a labyrinth of shell corporations, offshore accounts, carefully guarded secrets. What was the source of his power? It wasn't just money. It was something deeper, something more insidious. Epstein collected powerful people the way others collect art. He seemed to hold an invisible currency over them, a form of leverage that went beyond financial ties. He hosted lavish parties where the guest lists were a who's who of global influence. He cultivated an aura of intellectualism. Behind the glittering facade of power and influence, Jeffrey Epstein was constructing a horrifying machine. It was a sophisticated international sex trafficking ring designed to feed his predatory desires. This was not a crime of opportunity, it was a meticulously organized criminal enterprise. At the heart of this operation was Ghislaine Maxwell. She was the daughter of the disgraced media tycoon Robert Maxwell, a British socialite with an impeccable address book and a commanding presence. After her father's mysterious death, she attached herself to Epstein, becoming his closest confidant, becoming his partner, and, prosecutors would allege, his chief recruiter. She was the public-facing architect of his private hell. Maxwell's role was crucial. She used her social standing and seemingly trustworthy demeanor to lure young, vulnerable girls and women into Epstein's orbit. She was the friendly face, the respectable woman who could disarm a suspicious parent or a nervous teenager. She allegedly scouted for victims in public places, school campuses, shopping malls, working-class neighborhoods. She would offer them opportunities, promising them money for giving Epstein massages. It was a classic grooming tactic, a slow, deliberate process of breaking down boundaries and normalizing abuse. Maxwell was the gatekeeper to Epstein's world, and for many victims, she was the one who first opened the door to their nightmare. The operation was structured like a pyramid scheme of abuse. Epstein and Maxwell allegedly recruited some victims to then recruit other girls. Jeffrey Epstein's control over his victims was absolute. It was maintained through a sophisticated blend of psychological manipulation, intimidation, and the ever-present threat of retaliation. He targeted girls who were vulnerable, often from troubled backgrounds or families with financial struggles. He presented himself as a benefactor, offering them money, gifts, and the promise of a better life. He would offer to pay for their education or help their families. This created a powerful sense of obligation and confusion. Epstein allegedly demanded complete secrecy. He would tell his victims that what they were doing was legal, that it was just massages. He would also tell them that he was powerful, that he had connections to the police and the FBI, and that no one would ever believe them if they spoke out. He created a world where he was the ultimate authority, and they were powerless. This psychological conditioning was devastating. It instilled a deep sense of shame, guilt, and fear, making it almost impossible for victims to see a way out. They were trapped not just by physical circumstances, but by invisible chains of fear. Epstein was known to have surveillance equipment throughout his properties. Cameras were everywhere. The mystery of Jeffrey Epstein is inseparable from the people he surrounded himself with. His now infamous little black book, a contacts directory filled with over 1,500 names, reads like a global power index. It contained the names, phone numbers, and addresses of some of the most famous and influential people in the world. Politicians, royalty, Hollywood megastars. titans of industry, renowned academics. The existence of this book and the flight logs from his private jet fueled intense speculation about who knew what and who might have participated in his crimes. The first time the law caught up with Jeffrey Epstein, the system failed spectacularly. In the mid-2000s, police in Palm Beach, Florida, began investigating claims from dozens of girls who said they had been abused by Epstein. The local police built a strong case identifying more than 40 potential victims. They had enough evidence for a 53-page indictment that could have sent Epstein to prison for the rest of his life. But then, something extraordinary happened. Behind closed doors, a secret deal was struck. The federal prosecutor at the time, Alexander Acosta, negotiated a non-prosecution agreement with Epstein's high-powered legal team. This deal was unprecedented in its leniency. It allowed Epstein to avoid federal charges entirely. Instead, he would plead guilty to 2 minor state prostitution charges, one of which involved a minor. The deal also granted immunity from all federal criminal charges to Epstein and any potential co-conspirators, others who had helped run his operation. Epstein served just 13 months in a county jail. For most of that time, he was granted work release. It was a sentence reserved for a privileged few, a mockery of justice. Justice, long delayed, finally arrived on July 6, 2019. It came without warning. Federal agents arrested Jeffrey Epstein at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey as he returned from Paris on his private jet. The new federal indictment, brought by prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, was explosive. It charged him with sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. The indictment alleged a vast criminal enterprise that spanned decades and involved dozens, if not hundreds, of victims. Epstein pleaded not guilty and was denied bail. He was sent to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, a notoriously tough federal jail, to await trial. On August 10, 2019, the world awoke to shocking news. Jeffrey Epstein was dead. The official cause of death was ruled a suicide by hanging. The news was met with a tidal wave of disbelief and outrage. On the night he died, a series of stunning failures occurred. The lack of clear answers from the Department of Justice only added to the public's suspicion and distrust. The death of Jeffrey Epstein became a symbol of a corrupt system. Her arrest in July 2020 offered a glimmer of hope. In December 2021, she was convicted and was later sentenced to 20 years in prison. A victims' compensation fund has paid out over $125 million to more than 135 individuals. Civil lawsuits against other powerful figures. Prince Andrew settled a lawsuit with victim Virginia Giuffre for an undisclosed sum. The Epstein saga has left a deep and lasting scar on public trust. All reinforced a cynical belief that the justice system is rigged in favor of the rich and connected. Ultimately, the story of Jeffrey Epstein is a story of unanswered questions. Who were all of his co-conspirators? How many powerful people were involved, and to what extent? What exactly was the source of his mysterious wealth? Did he use blackmail material to protect himself and expand his influence? The secrets he kept are now buried with him, leaving behind a legacy of pain for his victims and a profound sense of distrust for the rest of the world. But the fight for accountability continues, driven by the brave survivors who refuse to be silenced. The questions remain, haunting the shadows of power.